Welcome to Money Isn't Everything. I'm Mary Wisniewski, Cornerstone Advisors editor-at-large and host of the show that explores early-stage ideas that could, if not already, shake up financial services. Today on the show is Elizabeth Osborne, and she's the COO at Great Lakes Credit Union. We chat about one of the longest sagas in fintech, open banking. And we also get into an update on the credit union's chatbot that speaks Spanish, and get into common mistakes fintech companies make in pursuit of financial institution partners. Here's our convo. Elizabeth, welcome to Money Isn't Everything. It's wonderful to see you and have you on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you again, Mary. It's been a couple months, 3 months.
Yeah, it's been a little bit because we, for those who weren't attending FinTech Meetup, we did a panel together and it was a lot of fun. So I had to be like, Elizabeth, come talk to me again. So here we are. Thank you for doing that.
I'm so honored.
Well, there's so many topics I want to quiz you about and just get your insights into. But I think the broad theme I have is like access and different ways of like providing access for a wide range of people seems to be like sort of how I'm putting these dots together in my mind. But thought we might start with one of the thorniest and topical and never seems to die issue, which is open banking, which is, of course, in limbo again. Could it be rolled out? Could it? Yes. Could it just be modified? Also, yes. Could it stay? Yes. Although that seems like it might be hard in the current environment. But, one thing I've heard from like banks and credit unions or just people fighting against this open banking, like, oh, it's actually, this is just would be too hard for them and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, oh, well, Elizabeth's actually worked in banking and not a credit union. And I am curious of what your take is on open banking.
So it's fascinating. When I think of open banking, I see it as, I kind of go back to the days of SWOT analysis, right? Open banking for financial institutions, whether it's a credit union or a bank, we should treat it as a threat, right? And if it doesn't become a threat, that's great. You're prepared. But if you treat it as a threat, know that is a threat that you could turn into a strength and opportunity. That's even better, right? And I think that how it's rolled out in the U.S., time will only tell. We have such a unique financial infrastructure and system here. I don't think we can compare it to what happened in Europe because it's not comparable, right? And so, but I think it's really important for us to think about, if it comes to fruition fully, if that threat happens, then that means our members, both current and potential members, it's going to be super easy for them to switch financial institutions. Mm-hmm. So then you have to go back and ask yourself, okay, so what can we do to make sure that they want to bank with us, that they feel connected to us as a community, in the community, as a financial institution, because we know them or we support them. And so that's really what I focus most of my efforts on.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I also love this idea of like the bank hopper. It's such a niche person these days that would be like, hey, I'm done with you. I'm joining another. It just doesn't happen very often. It's usually like, hey, I've had this account for like 17 years and I've just added on like 5 fintech apps and blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious in what you're describing, what do you think as a credit union is the way forward in this digital first world? How are you showing value? Should it become actually easier for someone to hop bank accounts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we want to make sure we're providing the best value to all our members. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy fix for sure. I think of it as like a lot of different channels. So it's important that that people in your community know who you are. That's the first key. Because if they don't know, for us, Great Lakes Credit Union, then it's not going to matter to them, right? They're just going to whatever. They're not going to find value in banking with you because they don't know you. So your brand awareness is so key and so important. And then the other side is making sure that if they know us, that we know them, right? That it's personalized, that they're like, oh, hey, Great Lakes Credit Union offered me this product and it's like they read my mind. How did they know I need this right now? And so anything we can do where members can really tie in that value add to say, hey, I bank here and it's because XYZ. What's the why behind it? And it could be community. It could be great products and services. It could be that, they have some kind of like a subscription account and they pay a monthly fee, but they actually see what they get out of it, what that value is out of it. So I think it's a lot of different factors. And frankly, we're looking at all of them. I think we do a really good job with the community. 4 years ago, when I started at Great Lakes Credit Union, when some of my, because I moved here and I'd ask people, I'm like, do you know Great Lakes Credit Union? And most people are like, yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of you. Now they're like, oh, yeah, I saw a billboard, or hey, I heard about you on, online, or you're doing great things. I saw you at this event I went to. So I think we're really addressing the brand awareness, and that's a constant effort. Now we got to work on the other side, the technology side.
Well, that's an exciting side. And I like your point about subscription too, because I do think that's like more natural path forward for a lot of products. Just know what you're paying for and why and what you get from it. Seems obvious, but it is been a convoluted area of a lot of bank accounts, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think about how many subscription accounts you have on your accounts, right? That you probably don't even realize. Okay. We want to create something that members actually know what they're paying for, and they're appreciative of it. So
I have this like loose rule for myself. Once I add a subscription, I remove one. And I'm like,
oh, that's a good idea.
it's like, yeah, right. I was like, take that $3.
Well, yeah.
But then I'm like, I want it back. I want it back.
You'll almost get a cup of coffee with it, like this is
Almost.
great.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of rethinking things in a different way and value, I mean, one of the things we were talking about on the panel was Olive, your chatbot. Let's just catch listeners up to what that is. And just one note for the audience is that it understands Spanish. So that's how I'm queuing you up. Elizabeth, tell us about them.
I love telling the Olive story. So Olive really represents the true start of our AI journey. So actually over 2 years ago, I was seeking a solution to help our member support center, so our member contact center. At the time, they reported to me. And I was tasked with, hey, Elizabeth, there's a lot of opportunity here. Figure out how to fix it, right? Because
Great.
wait times. I was like,
okay. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. I was like, I love a challenge. Holy
Yes.
moly, this is a big challenge. And also, I didn't have experience in call center. So I'm like, well, I know technology. So what's out there? What can we use that makes sense and will complement our current services, but also help to ensure that members that really need to talk to someone, they can still talk to someone. And so I spent a lot of time looking at like third parties where you kind of offset calls to other people through other companies. And those are kind of clunky. They work, but they weren't really meeting that need. I don't think that was going to be our big like wow moment.
Mhm.
And then I started looking at, because AI was still pretty new at the time. It was the question at the time was whether or not, our regulators at someday could tell us that we're not allowed to use AI. Like that was the big question. Can you believe it? Think about that 2 years ago to now. Right?
Wow, that's wild. That is a wild thing. Yeah, and you're talking about generative AI too, right? Like with all
Exactly.
of yes.
Yeah. We're like, well, how do you know you're not going to happen? I'm like, well, let's give it a try, and we got to tell our story. And so we found a really good partner. And so I vetted a lot of people, and I found Interface AI. They had just great, well vetted models that they had a lot of clients on Scimitar. That's our core with Jack Henry. It's a great core. And so we decided to move forward with them. And so we introduced Olive. Olive sits at the carrier level. So what that means is every time a member calls our credit union, the first person they speak with is Olive. And I will tell you, for a lot of members, that's great. She's able to transact. She's able to meet their needs. For other members, they're like, I don't want to talk to Olive. I want to talk to my person at mortgage or whatever the case. They have the ability to do it, but Olive transacts both in English and in Spanish. We introduced Spanish last year, and it's been a huge game changer for us. Over 60% of all calls are fully serviced by Olive during business hours.
Wow,
60%, where the tool we had before it was less than 25. We had very touch tone banking,
yes. I was just about to ask you what it sounds like. Actually, I'm gonna have to call up Great Lakes Credit Union because I'm wondering what is the voice and how hard is it to settle on? Okay, this voice isn't a robot, saying, "Hey, press, 01 or whatever." I don't know.
It's hard. We spend a lot of time on the voice. Actually, we got sound bites from Interface AI once we landed on a name, which we had to engage our staff to vote on. Because I was like, we need help. This is a big decision because that's our brand, And so the voice took some time. And, the voice continues to evolve and improve. I think AI voice 2 years ago versus now, like night and day difference. And actually, we're going to have an upgrade later this year, and it'll be even more natural and more conversational. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I'm curious too of like, because I know, I mean, a lot of like members or like customers, depends where you work, but tend to call. They're like, hey, what's my routing number? Or like questions like that. But I'm curious, are you getting any like surprising queries of like, from I mean, I'm always a little bit of a voyeur, Elizabeth, I guess is what I'm saying.
I
Like,
love it.
what are people wanting to know?
I'm not aware of anything crazy, but I did find kind of early on that for some members, because they were just frustrated, and they're like, it's just not working with all of them. Well, we found members have like almost like pet names for their accounts. Like they don't call like their checking account a checking account or their shirt. They were calling it like something like, I don't know, like my Miami account or whatever, like a
Yeah.
random name. But Olive is like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I was like, can you further describe what you're looking for? And they'd be all frustrated. And then we read the script and we're like, oh, did you name your checking account this? Or are you referring to it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, next time call it a checking account. If you try that, guaranteed Olive can help you. So it was kind of funny seeing like people have code names for things
Yeah.
and they were frustrated.
How dare you not know my pet name for my
How dare
account?
you? Yeah. Because and there's sentiment analysis built in. So if they get really frustrated, it just automatically directs the call to a person. Like we're just going to handle it from there. But
That underscores the move I do when I call a number and it won't like give me a human. I'm like,
oh yeah. Yeah. I'm like 000. Yes.
I'm like, oh yeah, I seem a little unhinged. Maybe I am.
We all are.
We all are. Yeah. So I think it's especially cool, this like ability to speak different languages, because I think it's like underestimated in the industry, like in the US, like, yes, we need more languages here, because I know from like different research and just calls I've had in the past, it's like some people are really uncomfortable, banking with, an institute, with a credit union, with a bank, if there's a language barrier thing. And I know with all of you were talking, I think even in March, about maybe like I was speaking Polish or something. So I'm just kind of curious of like, yeah, the language is here, and what would make you move on the next one?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's important to note that, we're Great Lakes Credit Union. We are in the Chicagoland market. And Chicago is extremely diverse. That's one of the reasons I moved here. I love the different cultures. And so it's hard to pinpoint really who's the best fit. The easy one was Spanish because there's a really large Hispanic population in Chicagoland market. So it's in Chicago and in the surrounding areas, suburbs. And so that was a game changer because frankly, it's our responsibility to meet the members on how in the language, speak to them in the language that they prefer, whatever their native language is. And so it was a good test case to see, do members adopt it and use it? And they are, and it's slow. It takes a while because sometimes they need to be told, hey, did you know you can talk to Olive in Spanish? Um, but as we continue to grow and expand, and really, especially in the like true city, because that's where you find so many different languages and cultures, we're constantly assessing to say, okay, should we expand it in other languages like Polish? There's all kinds of different languages that we could look at. And
Hmm.
luckily, Interface AI is really lucky. We're lucky to have them as a partner because they're super open, working with us to introduce new languages. So more to come.
I love that. And I want to talk to you about like your approach to like how you hire a fintech. But before I do, I think it's a natural transition to talk about like some of the seeker work that your credit union has pursued. So yeah, tell me about it, because I found that very striking when we first met.
Yeah, it was really incredible, and it was a big decision because there's risks with it, right?
Hmm.
So I'll never forget the meeting we had with our executive team where this came up. And we're like, there is a need in our city. We have thousands of people that are here from other countries that can't bank here, but they're trying to get jobs. They're trying to find housing. And the city is trying to help provide some funding for them to help them get started, but there's nowhere to put the money, right? So we're like, okay, how can we help them? So we actually partnered with the city of Chicago and to assist the asylum seekers. And so we altered our account opening process. We came to them, right? We helped with them with our online account opening solution and helped them to open accounts. Uh, we took some risks with that, but we helped so many people with that. And it was such a need to help these families that are coming here because that was their only choice to settle and have a place where they can then bank with us, right? So that was important, especially to have access like our mobile app. So then they can access the funds, giving them a debit card so they can take money out the ATMs and really to kind of get started in their new life here.
Yeah, I think I asked you this at the panel, but it's just extraordinary, like how much trust is required because that kind of human, I'm sure, is like, I don't, like trust has been violated, right? So like, then to like, yeah, trust, an institution. I mean, for anyone that might want to get into work here, did you find any like especially helpful ways to connect with people who might have been like, I'm very nervous to hand over money here to open this account?
Yeah. And we had a team that would go on site and have those one-on-one discussions. So I think if we didn't have in-person discussions, I don't know if we would have reached so many people, as many people as we did. Because we ended up helping. I'm looking at my notes here because I don't want to misspeak. 529 people.
Wow.
529 people. And these were individuals with the Asylum Seekers Emergency Rental Assistance. So I think that really shows that they did trust us. They don't know how banking in the US works also. And then on the flip side, we don't really know them. And so we have to make sure that we are able to get the appropriate identification. Like there's identification the city of Chicago provided. So we were able to use that as part of our KYC procedures too. It was on both sides, but it was really important to have that discussion. And a lot of our bilingual staff went out there to help with that.
For American Bank, I read a story a while ago, and it was actually a Wells Fargo branch, and it was somewhere in the Midwest. I can't remember where, but it was like this one branch, like it had representatives that could speak like 8 languages or something, but it was because it was catered to like a similar, type of audience. So it's like, yes, you need to know. Another example is where you need to know the language, especially in that particular instance, I think. Now, Elizabeth, you had mentioned interface AI, but I know you work with different fintechs. So I'm just kind of curious, like when you're like, hey, I have this problem, I want to, find some technology that can help solve it. Like, what is that process like for you? I mean, of course it depends on like what you're trying to solve for, but like, are there some generalities where you're like, yeah, this is how I'm going to test this fintech person out?
Yeah. So we look at it a lot of different ways. I kind of like fintech meetup where we met, right? I go to conferences and I just kind of put like a wide swath of openings out there. Like, let's just see what's out there. So that helps me I like to meet with the owners or any key people at the fintech because I need to make sure because I think there's a big distinction between a vendor and a partner. And it's important for us that if we're going to invest our time, money, and sometimes it's a QSO investment in a solution that it's a partner that aligns with our needs and that also they have a vision that works well with our vision too. So that's really important. So I think it's beyond just the demo, right? The demo is important, but a lot of people kind of go straight to the demo and then they're in contracts, right? You need to get to know the business and you need to understand what their teams look like, right? What are their challenges been? Looking at their financials, what are their projections? What stage are they at? For especially some of our newer fintechs, and then we also a lot of times when we're looking at different partners, we say, well, is this an investment opportunity for a QSO? Because then, especially if we get a board seat, then you have a much better way. You have better influence to help drive that vision and future outlook for it. So that's really important. So I find it through conferences, but I also have developed over the years just a lot of really great partners, like the Circle Fund, Nick Evans. He's my buddy because he'll be like, Elizabeth, go check out this one. Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And every time I'm like, oh, they're awesome. How did I not know about them? And so then we kind of go down the path and see what we think. So I think partnerships are really important too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And having someone in your corner being like, hey, this is interesting. Go explore it maybe. But I'm also curious because, some of those demos are awful. Let's just be real. Like some of them are really awful. And maybe it's a good product. It's like, oh my gosh, we're just all falling asleep right now. But I am like curious, like, do you see from your vantage point, do you see like rookie errors that fintech companies make that you would advise them? Because, they're listening too. So I'm curious, like, yeah, any advice for the fintech entrepreneur trying to win the hearts of a credit union?
Oh, yes. So a lot of them I find they some really blatant ones. They'll like reuse slides with the wrong logos, like not our logo, someone else. And I'm like, oh, you're talking to Great Lakes Credit Union, just and they're like, oh my gosh, oh so sorry. I'm like, you don't even know who you're talking to. Like, come
That's
on.
too packed. That's too many packed Zooms.
Yes. Yes. I think, like I'd say more serious is with there's so many everyone's like AI, 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 right?
Yeah.
And and I'm like, that's great, but being able to really describe what they're doing, like what kind of AI is it? Are you who and what's training your models? What are your guardrails? And like being able to explain all some really can, and others are like, oh, and then they answer questions where I'm like, they have no idea, they don't understand what I'm asking. So that makes me think if they're trying to sell AI and they can't answer these questions, this is not a partner for us. This is not someone I'd want to go in with. So that's important. And then I think also just sometimes you get like handed off, like maybe you'll meet with the founder or an owner and they kind of hand you off to some junior salesperson. And then they're like, they have no idea. They can't pick up where that conversation left off. That's a big rookie mistake too.
I see that. I was like, what is this? Because the executive was still on the call. And I'm like, are you too like fatigued to talk? I don't
It's
know.
like, man, we already talked about this. Come on. And like you're just like, there's not that like follow through. And so not being really understanding of maybe our time too. And,
Yeah.
I want to make sure I give it the time deserved, but I also don't want to repeat. So
You know what? We have this in common. When I used to be an editor at like publications, you would get just like these wild pitches where like, yeah, the person writing them maybe didn't even know the publication name and certainly didn't know what it covered. American Maker often got mistaken for American Baker. Baker. It's like,
really,
yes,
big difference. Come
it's a
on.
big difference. I mean, I'm curious, but like, yeah, one thing I can write about and one thing I cannot. But yeah, just these things that are important to learn. Elizabeth, I wanted to inquire, and I wrote a note about this too. So I saw Bank Social and getting immediate payday to gig workers, and I'm just like generally curious about that because of course here I'm in LA, tons of gig work. I mean, tons of gig workers everywhere, but like the cash flow challenges are wild, and that's putting it in a nice way. But tell me about that project.
Yeah. So Bank Social, for those of you that have not looked at them, take a look at them. What they're doing is truly representative of the future of financial institutions in our ecosystem. So it's decentralized finance, right? Using blockchain technology. They have their own stablecoin. But in this particular question, what they've done, and we're using them for this, we're one of their first. We're investors. And I'm also on their board. Full disclosure. Okay. But they're fantastic. We made a decision on this because we're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting what they're doing. So I get kind of like geeky excited when I talk about them.
Yeah.
But like John Wingate and Becky Reed are fantastic. And so what that particular ad speaks to is the real-time payment network in FedNow, right? So immediate real-time payments. It's so important for financial institutions to have those rails. For gig workers to receive that payment immediately, you have to have receive turned on, right? So Great Lakes, we have RTP receive, and FedNow receive is going to be on like any day. We're in the final test for certification with FedNow. So that's for receiving it. So that means any member that is paid by a merchant like Uber or like, DoorDash or whatever, and they change the rails they use a lot. So it's never, I can't speak to it as this is right now. It could be different tomorrow but whoever they're using for real-time payments, they'll get to see that payment immediately. So they finish that job, they finish their day, they're paid. And that's a game changer. A lot of credit unions aren't doing this, but the big banks are all over it. They've introduced it throughout. They've had it for some time. So it's so important that we use this to remain competitive.
And also, like, a lot of gig workers will take on, like, let's say, do like an Uber shift to be like, I need that money today to pay this. This is why I'm doing that today. So I think, yeah, especially for this scenario, it really, really, really matters. Okay, Elizabeth, I just have a few more questions for you. But one, I usually do it earlier in the show, but I'm doing it now. And that's what you said. And it's just a quote pulled from a podcast you were on. And you said something that's that I think is really important. Not often that's said, but it's lack of self-awareness is a massive threat for leaders. Successful leadership requires adjusting your style to your employees, not expecting them to adjust to you.
Yeah.
I love that. She did a little like, I won't call it a side eye, but like, but maybe you've done dirty the other way.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought up because it's so important. It's like, and it's something that I really try to be aware of. It's important that all of us, whether we're leaders or not, frankly, that we're communicating with people in the way they like to be communicated with, not what you prefer.
Hmm.
Right? Think about how you communicate with your boss, right? If you're communicating with your boss in the way that you prefer, maybe your boss doesn't prefer that way. Maybe they do better if they read something, or I don't know, could be all kinds of things. So as leaders, we have got to be self-aware of that. You have to think about, how can we best connect with our team? How can we ensure that we are doing everything in our power to meet our team members in the moment, to have that discussion with them so they feel like they're being heard. And that it's like simply active listening and then responding and kind of tweaking your approach to their needs. It's so important.
And I think it's like, I don't see so much evidence of it. And you, you know what I mean? It's usually like, meet me on my terms, and I won't even tell you what they are necessarily. So yeah. And then it's a power struggle thing too. So I think that's really interesting. So thank you for opining on that.
Of course.
And just two more questions. One more general, like someone wanted to connect with you. What's the best way? And what's one thing that you find so exciting right now in fintech and/or is like really making you mad?
Oh, yeah. So LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Osborne. So feel free to connect with me. I'd love to connect with each of you. And then, yeah, I'm going to talk about what's exciting.
Okay, cool. Ended on an upbeat.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that. So I think with agentic AI, that combined with where digital is going and with open banking presents such a crazy cool opportunity, because members, eventually what's going to happen is your digital banking mobile app is going to evolve into your personal AI assistant. And that assistant's going to know you. It's going to know that, hey, Elizabeth, heads up, you got a bill coming up. You're a little short in your account. I can click here and I can move money from this account, right? And having that personalization is so key. And that's coming up so fast. AI is moving so fast. So agentic AI is coming. It's here in a lot of places, but I do think it's going to really transform the digital banking industry.
I love that. Did you follow Digit back in the day? That like rethought automated savings.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yes. So the founder Ethan Block he's co-founded something with somebody else called Hero Finance, and I think it's going to be sort of working on what you're saying, but I don't know much about it other than he has a new act, and it's definitely worth following.
I got to check this out. Hero Finance. Cool.
Yeah, HIRO. And last question for you, Elizabeth, is what's that image on your phone's lock screen?
Oh, it's my family.
Aw.
You want to see? They're cute.
Yes, I do. Oh, look at that family.
Yeah, that's my husband, Justin. There we go. And then my son, Ethan, he's 7, and my daughter, Kate.
Aw, little beautiful family. Well, Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining me on the show. As I knew, it was wonderful talking to you.
You as well. It was a great connection.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So one thing that really stood out to me is that people have pet names for their bank accounts, and I think I'm gonna call mine Let It Roll. In 2 weeks from now, I'm in conversation with Keith Armstrong, who co-founded a company that served the formerly incarcerated. Now it's doing something a little bit different. See you then.